Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Explosive Colonisation, and we start off exactly where we left off last time. So this is the remnants of our beautiful crash of that lovely OPT plane that lasted for technically one flight, if you don't count moving it away from the loading space. But we're getting on with this, and essentially what I'm having problems with here is the base that I'm travelling to has issues. It keeps contacting the ground and randomly exploding, and I'm losing parts. So I want to get everybody off Eve, and as I said in the last episode, there's also an update coming out for the SEV. At time of recording, and pretty much by about halfway through this episode, I've upgraded to the new versions of the SEV, Pathfinder, Heisenberg, and a whole load of things. And I'm not sure if that caused any, in fact it didn't cause any of these issues, but there was some other interesting things going on at the same time. But as you can see, I've got a few little problems here and I'm trying to fix them. And there was a little bit of quick loading, so if you see any discrepancies, I apologise. Again, this was filmed over about a week, so I'm sort of missing bits and bobs. But have a look around to see what's there. Recycle some of the equipment, but I don't really need it. This base produces most of what it needs, aside from life support. I think it recycles life support, but doesn't really produce any new stuff. But we get up and running, and we transfer some more resources. And essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a little bit of a setup here to get everybody off planet. I want to get them all up to the space station. I'm sort of re-evaluating what I'm doing. So I'm putting a launch pad out here to build things, because I think I can make this, in the setup it's got at the moment, I think I can make this actually build something. So I jump back to the landing base to transfer some resources back up there, just because I'm running shy at this moment in time. But I want to get everything not self-sufficient, but I basically want to be able to build something to get me off planet fairly quickly, because there's some funny issues happening and I want to keep all the Kerbals safe. The last thing that I want is for a part to explode that contains Kerbals that are highly trained. Low trained ones are expendable, but such is life. So I get the landing pad there, and then I leave it building something and move on for a little while. So we transfer it up to orbit, and we actually go to the sister ship of the Event Horizon. So this was the one that I mentioned last time, but I didn't actually show the footage because I lost it. But it was a standard launch, throw the Event Horizon up into orbit and leave it parked there. And I thought I'd leave a bit more of this in this time to try and explain better the orbital dynamics. So you basically conserve momentum when you use a warp drive. And the easiest way to think about it is if you've got three sides of a triangle. Your first side is the direction and speed, so that would be the length. But the direction and the speed of where you're taking off from. The second side, starting at the same start point, would be your direction and speed of the object you're going to, so the next planet. And you have to include your orbital velocity. It's not just the velocity of the planet you're in, but also which way around the orbit you're going as well. That can change it an awful lot, which starts to get complicated when you're in the Julian system, because you've got multiple to calculate there. But your third side of the triangle is the direction and distance, i.e. speed, between the tips of where you're coming from and where you're going to, and that's how much you need to change your velocity. So the easiest way to do it is find out which direction that is, and essentially use the sun's gravity, so warp close to the sun and use the sun's gravity to pull you that amount of distance to change your velocity and your angle of velocity. Is that right? I'm not sure, but yeah, to change essentially the velocity and angle of the third side of the triangle. So as you see there, I get it wrong and I disappear back out to the sun to readjust. And once I get back to Juna, I actually manage it. And this went surprisingly well. It took a little bit of time, but I managed to get there in the end. And then you just see me shutting off the drive and going back to the standard propulsion. And then I just set up some orbital interceptions to get to the DSS station, the Juno space station. And then I realised that I haven't changed this at all from the original design. So unfortunately, it doesn't have any RCS to dock. So because I'm missing a reaction control system, I get it roughly aligned and then dock the station to it, because the station's got plenty of RCS. And instead of messing about with angles and things, all I do is leave them just with the noses touching like this, without any time warp or anything like that, and then just let the actual magnetic forces between the docking ports pull us together. And you see me just kicking out two little solar panels I've got there on the big boosters, because I want to move this. So once it's all docked together, I grab this section and just rotate it slightly, as part of my plan. Now, as I said before, as I said in the last episode, the update for DSEV essentially was pulling out some of the trusses. The Angel 125s actually made them more efficient, and from what I see, they actually do work better when it comes to frame rates. So the old ones have been deprecated, and the first release did cause a few problems, but it's all been fixed now. So if you have old things, you can go back to your old save, and you won't be able to use the old ones. Anything new you build will have the new ones, but the old ones will disappear after time. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So once we get everything sorted with the station, we head down to the surface, we grab everybody that's left on Juno, and this partly comes because I'm trying to pull everybody to the one place, because I need to set up a manufacturing base. So I need some high quality engineers to be able to churn out some ships quickly. However, I'm not quite sure where I'm putting the base yet, whether I'm going to leave it somewhere in the Julian system or put it on Dres, which I think might be a good idea because it's fairly close to Kerbal, but it gives me the ability to manufacture things in the lower gravity, so I can manufacture on the surface. I'm not quite sure yet, we'll see what happens. But we get everybody up, and same problem again, no RCS. And by this time I'm actually getting kinda good at doing this. I'm not a Scott Manley yet, but as you can see here, a little bit of touches with the thruster and docked. I still rely on the magnets, but still. So once we've got all of that done, we head across to Kerbal, and this is where the original Event Horizon is. And as you can see here, we have a fair few mods attached to it. So what I've got here is I've got a supply shuttle, I've got a crew shuttle, I have a little section in the front which basically contains a whole load of rocket parts, and then on the front of that is just a refueling booster, which just had more life support and some liquid hydrogen for the standard propulsion on the Event Horizon because it needed refueled. So I leave that booster attached while I'm actually using the main propulsion to throw it into a higher orbit so that I still got as much as possible. Now, at this time I was having a problem with the Alcubierre drive, which turned out not to be a problem. Essentially, I couldn't get it to work properly around about Lathe. So I had reverted back to the previous version that worked fine for me, and I was coming to and fro between the two versions because there was a developer version up that added a couple of more parts for different warp drives. And between the two of them, I don't know what happened. I think I might have been tweaking it or something like this, but essentially I discovered that I could not warp through the sphere of influence boundary. So if I warped through that, it was causing explosions. So I found a little bit of a workaround, and this is with the newest version of the Alcubierre drive. Seems to be working And I figured out later on that it was because my ship was too large. As you can see when I turn the bubble on, I've got bits sticking out, but it seemed to be working. It just wasn't working when you went through the sphere of influence. So all I do is I turn on the drive and then feather the throttle and get close to the edge of the solar system, edge of the Kerbal sphere, and then let it naturally, I turn off the drive and let it naturally float over the top of the edge. So we kill it here, a little bit of time warp, and we're in the sun sphere of influence. That's not an easy thing to say in my accent. So then it's time for the usual, which is ye olde triangle, which isn't too bad at the moment. Between Kerbal and Eve, as you can see there, they're both on the same side of the sun. They're roughly close, and I was actually going back the way at Kerbal, so I should be able to enter Eve's orbit without too much of a velocity change. So I just warped down here to give me a little bit of extra help. And then after a little while we head back to Eve. And the trick is entering, because you don't quite know where the boundary is. So I'm getting close, and then there's an explosion which kills all my radiators and sends me spinning. But as you can see, most of the ship's intact. The only problem is I can't use my reactor, because if I turn it on, I'm goosed. As you can see there, the two ships that I have attached to this have some solar generation, and there's two uprated RTGs, the ones from the near future pack. So I actually managed, using small jets of the Alcubierre drive, the warp drive, I managed to get into an orbit and then go back to conventional thrusters to sort me out. And then essentially it's just a couple of orbital burns to get straightened up and get lined up with one of the ships that's there. So this is the Hammerhead that we're aiming for, which is a ship I sent out a while back when I was colonising Eve. And we're just trying to get docked to that first, because we have somebody on board that we need to rescue, essentially. But we also have a rescue contract, and we have a contract for entering orbit and flying by Eve, so we're covering a little bit of money at the same time here. So a lot of fine tuning later, here we are docking up, and it's not too bad with the RCS that I've got on board this, and my plan is to leave this frame here so that I can slowly cannibalise that into a small station. I'm going to send out some more supplies, but I'm going to build it up into a small station and just scrap parts into equipment, and then recycle the equipment into not material kits, into rocket parts to build more sections and add them onto the station. That is the plan, at least. We'll see what happens. But I get an orbit that's fairly close by doing gentle burns with this offset mass, and then release one of my ships after transferring all the fuel to it, one of my little landers. And I just use this to intercept my other contract, which is somebody who's been stranded here for many years. So we get them out, get them rescued. Surprisingly easy. And back to the main clump of attached ship parts. Now another thing that I'm doing is I want to get rid of two of my mods, and the only parts left from these two mods are on this ship. So it is Module Rocket Systems, which is a brilliant mod if you want to have a look at it. It provides a lot of interesting parts. And the Mark III expansion. I actually only had it installed because of one particular piece that I wanted, but I was messing about and made this ship at some point, so I couldn't uninstall it, and that's just to try and get my game to load faster. I try and keep my mods to minimum, which actually is probably about 60 or so. But there we go, just recycling everything back into equipment. I've made sure that this site grabs everything. And then after a little while we undock the Event Horizon with everybody on board and we head back to Kerbal. Now obviously this is an interesting problem because I don't have any power generation aside from the solar panels, and now I've lost the RTGs that are actually on board the station. So I have to run an Alcubierre drive off of 8 small solar panels, which is not even that. So as you can see here, to get a little bit of quick charge, I occasionally turn on the reactor and let it overheat. Or get close to overheat and turn it back off. And all I'm doing is going round an orbit which gets me some charge in the solar panels, and then doing a little bit more of a boost, and then rinse and repeat. Just running down my EC till it's almost empty, but not empty, keeping an eye on everything. And around I go again and again. And part of the problem is that I have now run out completely of liquid hydrogen, so the main engine on this can't be used. But we do get there in the end. We get to Kerbal, and now we have the problem of slowing down. So I didn't do an adjustment at the sun. I decided to go straight back here and try my luck. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm trying to use the gravity of Kerbal to slow down. So I'm trying to get as close to it so that it starts to, as you can see there, so it starts to bend my orbit, and then just get as close to the orbit as possible, go past, and then let gravity take me to the edge of the solar system, which obviously the gravity from Kerbal will slow me down as I'm going out. It will reduce my speed, and then essentially warp back to the same position, and again rinse and repeat. And it turns out I only have to do it 3 times, and I get into a fairly good orbit, as you can see here. So I set a bit of a manoeuvre node, get everybody into my little lander, and actually set them up for a little burn to bring them back to the KSC. Quite unremarkable. I was aiming for the water, but yeah, my aim's always off when it comes to landings. But here we go, everybody's back, and we've completed 1 contract, and as soon as I get back in, we've completed the second one. We have rescued 1 Kerbal that was stranded as a contract, and rescued the other Kerbal that I stranded there, and completed the get to Eve and fly by Eve, even though I hadn't done the mission before, but I've been to Eve before. So, long-time viewers will recognise this. This is our little skiff launcher, which is some of my, it's basically my KISS module, so I can get it up and do lots of modifications to ships. And the reason for the launch for this is that in removing some of my things, I've decided to just get rid of this ship. This is the Ares one. And yeah, I was humming and hawing for a while, but I decided to remove it, and I'm going to do it in that stupid fashion as usual of trying to land it, because the engine's valuable. It's all, everything that's landed gets your money back, but the engine is specifically valuable, so I've decided to try and give that a shot. So as you can see, I've got a whole load of parachutes, 2 drogue chutes to try and slow me down from a higher speed, and then a whole load of normal parachutes. And I get lazy and don't attach them all. I took a lot more than I actually attached. But I burn for the atmosphere, and because those cryo tanks at the back end have a habit, they have a much lower heat sensitivity, I have to keep power coming in to try and decelerate as much as possible. And then I realise I'm having problems actually trying to get my parachutes out, so a little bit of on the fly rejigging of my launch settings. But we get all of the parachutes out that I have, and unfortunately it is not enough. So I release the front module to come down on its own, purely because I'm trying to tip the nose forward slightly, and then when we get close I decide to abandon and save the Kerbals. But we get some money for it, not all the money I was hoping for, but we get some. So, back out to the Heaven 1 now. This is again out at Lathe. This is the orbital station. And as you can see there, it's a mishmash of all sorts of different things. And this is now a storage wing that I'm bringing out to it. So I've built this in orbit and I'm just clipping it on, which will allow me to have more storage, which means I can shoot more things up in a mass driver from the landing base, which now is pretty much automated. It's still producing everything, it's just no Kerbals there. And the mass driver doesn't require a Kerbal to run it, which is good. It's a nice automated system. So now that we've got the new module in, we bring all the Kerbals over from my life support ship, which I'm still not quite sure what I'm doing with at the moment, but we'll see later. It's good to have these things in orbit, it's always a resource you can use. But we dock my Kerbals onto the Heaven 1, get them out so that they can actually help with the efficiency of building things, because this has had something building for that long that, yet again, I've forgotten what it is. So there's the old mech jib problem of having to turn it off to make it dock. Ugh. I really can't speak today, but I've been awake for 36 hours, so that's always fun. And from orbit we head down to the planet and we start consolidating the Kerbals that are left on the planet. So this is the Heisenboat base. And we're just getting our 3 Kerbals out of there, and luckily there was one of these little VTOLs there already. So we just take this one up and head straight back to the landing base. I've decided to sort of consolidate there because I loaded in to the mother load base and something exploded, so I've decided to move everything back to landing for the moment, because at least there, touch wood, things aren't exploding. And this was running at really slow frames per second, so I couldn't tell exactly how fast I was landing. It looked like I was going to crash, hence the parachutes. But we get back, and then from here we take a little bit of time and we actually build a new flyer to launch up. So this is my latest VTOL creation, and this thing flies like a dream. It doesn't fly brilliantly on Lathe, but on Kerbal it really does fly like a dream. I think it's to do with a thinner atmosphere. But it's working quite well. As you can see, we have tilt fins, tilt fans even. So the fans are from the Heisenberg mod, which is another one of Angel's. And obviously the plane is OPT. And there are some little hidden wings on the inside and hidden fans on the inside just to make it do what I wanted. But yeah, it's still great, I love it. It looks pretty and it runs off a nuclear as usual because I love radiation. So just coming in, tilt the fans down to give us some lift, get the gear up, and then the problem here is that I'm at such a high altitude, it doesn't actually have lift here, it's just slightly negative. So I bring on the RCS. Now the reaction control system on this was actually controlled by the fans and it's compressed air. Again, this is from the Heisenberg mod, which is an airships mod. But yeah, it's fantastic, I love this thing, because you can tilt just like this and take off nice and smoothly. So we grab everybody and head back nice and fast. And you can tell there that I'm actually enjoying it because I'm barrel rolling all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I think this is my favourite craft in a while. It's small, it's simple, but it flies like a dream. And it just looks really nice and sleek. There aren't actually any extra reaction wheels, but the fans do have reaction wheels in them. So yeah, it's quite a simple design, but it's good fun. So we get everybody back to the motherload base and we start building some more things. Not the motherload base, sorry, the landing base. We start building some more things at the same time as we complete the ship that I had forgotten about. So this is actually using the Far Future Technology engine, and this is built to have basically the back end comes off and you can change the engine on it. But as per usual, I've forgotten something, and on this I've forgotten power generation. It doesn't have a reactor, and it needs a reactor to charge that thing up, so I just move it out of the way and forget about it. And then just to see us out, I try and re-enter something. This is just a little craft and I was just bringing it back down to the landing base. But it flips forward and yeah, we're goosed. So, that was video, that's what's going on at the moment. Thanks for watching. And as usual, please comment, it's always nice to see if you have suggestions or otherwise. And bye!